Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. One of the likely 2028 presidential candidates who has been escalating his rhetoric in recent weeks is Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker. Now, much like California Governor Gavin Newsom, Pritzker believes that he needs to elevate his profile against Donald Trump. And this has entailed making a series of reckless statements and threats to the Trump administration. But this is a challenge that he likely regrets because, well, the Trump administration has bad news for him. And so when he is saying, come and get him, well, he's already been got. We'll get into the story here shortly. But before we do, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Well, J.B. Pritzker has been under siege of sorts because the Trump administration has dispatched law enforcement and National Guard troops to his state in an effort to get criminal aliens off of the streets. J.B. Pritzker and Brandon Johnson, who is the mayor of Chicago, have resisted and fought him tooth and nail over this. They have no problem with criminal aliens, cartel members, human traffickers, fentanyl smugglers roaming the streets of Chicago with hardly any pushback whatsoever. So they don't welcome federal law enforcement support for operations to get them off the street. And Chicago residents, they have been taking notice. But J.B. Pritzker, he believes this is all unconstitutional, that the federal government should not be involved in immigration. Well, haven't we been told for years and years that law enforcement on immigration, well, that's a federal matter and not a state matter? Yes, we've been hearing this for years and years. But when the federal government does have a commander-in-chief who is serious about enforcing the law, well, suddenly they forget how it works. And, well, J.B. Pritzker, he has issued a challenge to the Trump administration. Come and get him.
You just heard Vice President Vance. He didn't directly answer whether he agreed with President Trump that you've committed a crime, but what he did say was it seems pretty criminal to him, your behavior. What's your response?
Well, you just heard a tidal wave of lies from the Vice President of the United States. It's a bit shocking, and you heard over and over again him just making things up on national television with you. You know, there's a reason why the judge here in federal court said that the administration lacks credibility, and why even the Nobel Prize Committee chair said that the administration lacks integrity. This administration, led by a 34-time convicted felon, is threatening to jail people that are their political opponents. They're making things up to go after people. We're seeing it day in and day out. And the fact that he's made a threat against me, I'm not afraid. I'm going to stand up for the people of my state. And we've got to all stand together because there is truly unconstitutional actions that are coming out of this administration, coming at the states and the people of the United States. And all of us, Democrats and Republicans, need to speak out about it. One thing I'd point out, you mentioned Governor Stitt, who said specifically, like, we shouldn't be federalizing troops in one state and sending them into another, that he would be offended if I had troops going into his state. I am offended that Greg Abbott has troops coming into my state. And even Governor Scott in Vermont has called this unconstitutional. So good news, Republicans are now calling out the Trump administration. More should do so.
As you know, President Trump called for the prosecution of James Comey. It happened. He called for the prosecution of Letitia James, and it happened. He said you committed a crime. Are you worried the Justice Department is going to come after you?
It's true that the president says things, and sometimes he follows through on those threats, and he certainly has the power of the presidency. He does not have the power to overcome the Constitution. And so am I afraid? I am not afraid. Do I think that he could do it? He might. But as I've said before, come and get me. I mean, you're dead wrong, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President. And I will stand up for the law and the Constitution. That's what we do in the state of Illinois.
Well, the problem with all of this is that blue states like Illinois have extremely dubious election laws, including the dirty voter rolls that are on the books there in Illinois. I used to live there, and I know that whenever you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, there is plenty of reason to believe that the driver's licenses that are being given out there aren't being given to U.S. citizens in every case. So the Trump administration is taking the magnifying glass to the Illinois voter rolls, and Pritzker, well, he is flipping out.
Another thing that's happened, and very few people paying attention, you probably are, which is they demanded, the DOJ did, our voter data. Not just ours in Illinois, every state's voter data. Why? They won't tell us why. And actually, what they seem to be looking for, remember back to the 2020 elections, is they want to be able to find voter fraud, which lots of organizations have been looking for voter fraud, as you know, for a long time. There's very little voter fraud going on, very little. They're calling for all these databases so that they can look through them, and yet they won't tell you when they're going to come up with any conclusion about whatever it is they're looking for. Next year, when we have a November election, I think you're going to see two things that occur. One, you won't have had any results from this mass collection of data, of voter data. And then the second is you're going to have soldiers or people dressed as soldiers at polling places saying, we're protecting your voting rights. This is about voter integrity. And then the possibility that they'll be doing what Michael Flynn urged the president to do back in 2020, which is seize the ballot boxes at the polling places so that we can have the military do a fair count. Now, if you put all the things together that are happening right now, that wouldn't surprise me at all. Think about how hard they fought on this issue of whether the election had been stolen in 2020, right? The January 6th riot being an example of that, but lots of other things. And then all of those people at January 6th, being pardoned. All of that, put all those together and ask yourself, do you think what I just said is completely ridiculous? Do you think what I just said is something that's really possible with Trump as president and Stephen Miller in the White House and all the same people kind of advising the president that are at the edges of the law?
So the best way to prevent Democrats from winning elections is to have free and fair elections. Because if you go back and look at, well, for example, the 2024 election, Kamala Harris was able to prevail in states that almost all of them had lax voter ID laws, either did not require a voter ID or a photo voter ID. That was the great majority of the states that she was able to win. And of course, she didn't win a single swing state. So the big thing that the Trump administration can do to ensure that Republicans win is to make sure that only U.S. citizens vote in elections, that they have voter IDs, that they are residents of the state that they are casting a vote in. And that is really the best way to make sure that the Democrats can't really finagle their way into office. Of course, paper ballots, trackable paper ballots is the standard around the world for voting in elections. So get all of these down while we can, and that will really hold down the fort. That and getting illegal aliens off the books, out of the voter rolls, and in a lot of cases out of the country. So weigh in with your thoughts. What do you think about Pritzker versus Trump? I know who I'm betting my money on. And thank you for watching Explain America.